a tool for comparing tree structures using visual interactive interfaces. Here, we are looking at the changes at the US federal budget as reported by the White House since 1990 to the year 2013. On the left, we see a timeline with the overview of the total budget, and we are comparing right now the years 2006 versus 2007. We can move the slider to see the changes between each year, and you see a representation on the right. So for instance, between the year 2009 and 2010, we have a reduction on the budget of $61 billion that is represented with this bar going down and the color orange on it. To make things more interesting, we can add more information from the budget. For instance, we can divide the budget by agencies. And by doing that, I can include it in the hierarchy dynamically, and then traversely recomputes and finds a new layer that we can find here that tells us immediately that Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, Treasury, and Social Security Administration are the most or the biggest agencies in the budget, and that most of them are increasing, but the Treasury is the one with the biggest decrease. We also have individual timelines for each one of them, and we can hover over each one of those agencies to see the details of those. In the same way, we can continue moving over time and see, for instance, the budget for 2011 versus 2012, where Department of Health and Human Services is presenting a decrease of $19.41 billion. To make things more interesting even, we can add even more the characteristics from the data, like for instance the BEA category that tell us if some agencies are in the mandatory or discretionary side. Take a look that I'm dragging the BEA category to be on top, so that way we can group first by if it is mandatory or discretionary this way, and then by agencies. Doing that, we see immediately that the discretionary part, that it's about 30% of the overall budget, and we get that by the width of this box, is proposed to be decreased, or it was decreased between 2011 and 2012 in 28 billion, while the mandatory part was increasing $226 billion, and that part cannot be touched. And that one includes the Department of Health and Human Services and Social Security Administration. We can zoom in to the different areas of the budget. For instance, the discretionary part, where the Department of Defense, it's about half of it, and then we see education, health and human services, and the value for each one of those. The height of the boxes represents the percentage of change. So for instance here, Department of Transportation presents the biggest decrease for that year with 66% of decrease, and the color represents the absolute change as seen in this table. So, for instance, Department of Education has one of the biggest absolute decreases with actually $10 billion in decrease. Now, we can, going back to the overall budget, we can also apply filters to say, show me only the accounts with the biggest percentage difference. So I can enable the percentage slider and then move the lower bound to show only the ones that are changing the most, and then we see that Department of Education, Justice, Transportation, Federal Deposit Insurance, or Corporation are the ones with the biggest changes. For instance, Department of Transportation presents an increase of more than 8,000%. In the same way, we can use the other sliders, and let me remove this one to show the overview again. But that can be a little bit complicated. So what we did for that is to help users navigate those changes by using what we call a reporting tool. So the reporting tool presents a written list of changes that users can navigate. So for instance, here we can see that there are 38 nodes that decrease more than $29 million and 59 that increase more than $37 million. And go back to the decreasing ones and that are hovered and highlighted on the view, and then I can click on them and see only those changes. Or I can go back to showing all the nodes, and then for instance see only the agencies that decrease more than 29 million and zoom into those. With this, analysts were able to find changes in different datasets for more than 13 case studies that we developed on this thesis and find insightful information of comparing datasets over time. If you want to try a demo, please go to triversity.catlab.umd.edu. Thank you very much.